Welcome to our continuing X-Files countdown to Halloween. We pick up with one of the sailors on the sub from last time, and I have to admit I'm having trouble figuring him out. We know for a fact the incident of Zeus Faber was in the final days of World War II. The screen tells us this scene is in 1953. That's 8 years apart. He confirms that he was locked in the room with the captain. We were told that everyone in that room was dead or dying. Now, technically, he is dying, but 8 years later doesn't really qualify as dying. I mean, granted, if I was told I had only 8 years left to live, I'd be kind of bummed about it, but I don't think I'd really call that dying. I mean, that kind of takes all the fun out of living. I'm not looking to nitpick here, but I just spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make these things fit together properly because there didn't seem to be any logic to it. You could say that he was exposed to less radiation, so he eventually came down with some skin diseases, and they just happen to look like burns, except that he calls them these burns. I mean, maybe he just thinks that that's what they are. Again, I'm not looking to nitpick the X-Files. It's just the show throws a lot of bizarro shit at you at the best of times. So when something like this crops up where I'm trying to figure out how these seemingly normal pieces fit together and can't, it makes it that much harder when I'm told Bigfoot is real and we've made him our ambassador to the UN and we've disguised him by having him wear a hat. Okay, whatever the case, it's 1953 and he's the last one left and says he knows what he saw, but he isn't going to tell because whoever sent them knew it was a suicide mission and he's not going to let them profit from their deaths. But a trio of men are here to make sure justice gets done. They say, anyway. So he says the door was closed and the captain got conked on the head. Black oil flowed out of him and down the drain. Turns out the ones listening to this story are Fox Mulder's father and cigarette smoking man. These two get into everything. In the present, Scully finds two agents already waiting at the hospital where Skinner was taken on account of being shot. Skinner is able to tell Scully that he saw the shooter before. It wasn't spontaneous. It was planned so it would look that way. While she mulls that over, Mulder arrives with the oil-filled Krychek in D.C. and takes the key that will be needed when they get to the locker where the tape is stashed. Only on the way, a car is after them with its lights off. It's been waiting the whole time. They run off the road and crash. While looking around for that 8-year gap thing to try to figure it out, I saw a note on this image that said, "Lucky those water-filled barrels happen to be there." On the off chance someone out there doesn't know what those are, yeah, they're water-filled barrels placed so that a car will hit them instead of the concrete pylon behind them. It's a safety feature. Had they not been there, Mulder wouldn't have just banged his head. He'd have been flattened upside down against the pylon like Wile E. Coyote. Well, the mooks take Krychek away, wanting the tape. They get flash-fried instead. Oops. Meanwhile, Scully tells the two agents that we need guards on Skinner's door. She seems to have taken charge of this. I guess somebody has to around here. She visits the FBI's tech guru to find out about the physical evidence, and aside of learning his blood type, the suspect's not this guy's, he may feel like sharing, but it would really help right now. But all they've got is stuff that matches what the waitress already told them. Oh, also some hair samples. They could try to match these. Obviously, if there's hair, it's not from Skinner. Meanwhile, the two mooks aren't dead yet, but after talking to the doctor, the cigarette smoking man says, yeah, they are. It's fatal radiation. Unless someone can heal through the laying on of hands, these guys are screwed anyway. And I don't see anybody like that showing up. Mulder's certainly gotten off better. He awakens in a hospital with Scully watching over him. She's putting a lot of her medical skills to use in this two-parter. It's kind of a problem for me because my wife has been watching a lot of old episodes of House, and it suddenly made me realize what the show would have been like if it had been House that was Mulder's partner instead of Scully. Agent Mulder, looking glum. Did you find Elvis in the morgue? I have a woman in Nebraska who's been experiencing missing time, which seems to be balanced out by our conversation seeming like hours. House, the missing time all matches incidents of cattle mutilation, suggesting they're both related to alien abductions. Or that she's a sleepwalker with an innate hatred of cows. Be as cynical as you want, House, but the truth is out there. Yeah, but the lies have it outnumbered. Scully shows what she found out about the guy who shot Skinner. The markers that she's got here exactly match the ones found at the scene of her sister's murder.
Heavens to Betsy, what are the odds?
Meanwhile, the Syndicate is gathering to explain their interest. That spot on the ocean floor where the Piper Maru was poking about was where they recovered a UFO. Well, as much as you can call it a UFO when it's lying on the bottom of the Pacific. No mention of how they got it out. Presumably, they asked someone living in a pineapple down there to have his friends take it and push it somewhere else. Scully stops in to tell Skinner about the shooter, and he says that this guy is one of the men that jumped him in the stairwell and stole the tape. Finding out Skinner was warned to back away from the murder investigation just puts Scully on the warpath, no matter how much Skinner tries to get her to use caution. I mean, look where not being cautious got him. Scully's ready to resume the search for Krychek and needs Mulder. Say hello to my little friend.
I had it flown in from San Diego as evidence.
I'd like to present People's Exhibit A, Your Honor. Iron Man. That oily stuff that was on the suit and the two people that were possessed turns out to be oil. The oil used in World War II era subs and aircraft, in fact. It's also been exposed to radiation. Mulder's theory is that they're not dealing with a little gray kind of alien, but something that is truly alien. Something that needs to exist in a kind of medium, like that's found in this oil here, in order for it to be effective. It can then use the oil to move between human hosts and control them. He also thinks Krychek is the answer. But first, the tape. The lone gunmen are in charge of getting that to make sure no one follows Mulder inside and kicks his ass again to get it. And that I mean, of course, Skinner was the one who got the ass kicking last time. I just mean it's par for the course for Mulder to get a whooping. Well, all this subterfuge was for nothing. Only the case is found inside this envelope. Krychek has the tape itself and visits the cigarette smoking man to share it. The killer puts a gun to Krychek's head, but the boss already knows who's really piloting this body after what happened to those two minions, and he knows what it wants. The cigarette-smoking man shows up to report to the Syndicate, saying that he moved the UFO for security reasons because of that information leak, but not to our facility in Nevada, since we all know what's out there. But they're not just bothered by that. There's the shooting of Skinner. They don't like that. It was so public, and the guy responsible has his face out there now. If he can be found and arrested, he could reveal their other operatives and undermine the entire evil conspiracy. Or we can't have that. Where would we keep our evil? Frohicke's careful examination of the envelope notices that there is an indentation on the surface. Someone had been writing on it. Mulder's able to lift a phone number with a New York area code. Turns out it's the room where the Syndicate is meeting. Of course, we should have known. 666 for the man. Well, manicured man, that's the British guy, he decides to pick up, and upon hearing it's Mulder, decides to have a meeting. While they set that up, the FBI agents tell Scully what they found out about the guy. He's a mercenary, and he's been brought into the country illegally with no sign of where he is or ever was. And it means he can probably be slipped out of the country just as easily. I doubt he even needs to put on a fake mustache or anything. Mulder meets well-manicured man in Central Park and wants to know why Mulder would think that Krychek wasn't dead already. He says, nah, he's alive. In fact, you can have him if the price is right. He admits to Mulder about the UFO, a Foo fighter, shot down by American planes. Bitch, please. You can fly faster than light, but you get shot down by frickin' Popeye Boynton and the Black Sheep Squadron? Independence Day should have just been 10 minutes long with Cuba Gooding Jr. as Doris Miller shooting them all down. To show he's prepared to share, Mulder gives back the fact that Krychek has the tape and has been selling secrets off of it. The reaction tells Mulder that Krychek is actually at large still, but an observation about how anyone can be gotten to sends Mulder off to warn Scully about Skinner being in further danger. Well, good timing on that, because Skinner was put in an ambulance and Scully has to run to catch up with him. Only when the ambulance stops, she gets the feeling she knows what's up. The killer has returned.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
Scully chases the guy down and has him dead to rights. Scully is seriously worked up, in a way that she should have long ago reacted to Mulder when she couldn't hear one more fucking cockamamie idea about how cheese is an optical illusion or something. The guy's convinced she's ready to plug him for what he did, and so offers to tell her where Krychek is in return for his life. So she passes that on to Mulder when he calls. He knows the missile silo that the guy mentioned.
I want you to meet me at the D.C. airport in an hour. I want you to get 2 tickets on the first flight to North Dakota.
To just make my point that my deep dive on that 8-year thing wasn't a nitpick, I'll mention what I came across in the Nitpicker's Guide to the X-Files while I was trying to solve that conundrum. The author makes note of Scully not bothering to ask where to get tickets to which I say, hey, no offense to our fine state, but it's frickin' North Dakota. You take a flight from D.C. to North Dakota, you're going to Fargo. You're going to Minnesota, you go to the Twin Cities. Going to Illinois, you're going to Chicago. There's just not enough people heading from the nation's capital to Duluth, Sioux Falls, or Oshkosh to justify their own direct flights. See? I'm fair. They arrive by car in Black Crow, where there's the entrance to an underground series of missile silos. They're all supposed to be filled with concrete as part of its decommissioning, but turns out it's not. They head deep inside, finding empty silos, but no Krychek. However, these baked mooks means he's certainly been around. Unfortunately, though, there are more mooks. The two are dragged out, where cigarette-smoking man, he's there waiting, spewing lies. Nothing but lies. No, there's nothing down there. Krychek, he died months ago. Clicking here will stop further emails. Brazen falsehoods while they're dragged off. Behind the door for Silo 1013, Krychek has found the UFO. I've had a few mornings like that myself. It's all absorbed into the UFO, while back in D.C., Skinner is back to work and swings by to see Mulder. Or rather, he came to see Scully. He wanted to tell her that the killer was found dead in his cell, an apparent suicide. Well, Scully's not here, though. She's putting flowers on her sister's grave. When Mulder shows up, she repeats the idea that Johansson had shared, that the dead speak to us from beyond the grave, that's what a conscience is. But remember what he actually said. We bury the dead alive. Whether it's a P-51 pilot at the bottom of the sea banging on his own canopy, or... All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
Results came back. The lab cannot identify the metal. Said it might not even be terrestrial.
Really?
No, you idiot, it's titanium.